Hi everyone, I trust you're all keeping safe in this challenging time, and I'm sure we're all hoping that things will get back to normal soonish. Today, I'm going to go through some of the key stages of the process of vocational qualifications that we provide. This will include some details around the development of these qualifications, including the trade routes, course structure, portfolio, assessment, and progression. Let's start by taking a look at the timeline. Because of the current situation of COVID-19, some of these dates would have shifted, which I can go into more detail in a moment. We started our journey in August 2019, carrying out 3 raising awareness events, informing stakeholders of the proposed structure and a draft specification of the qualifications, which includes foundation, progression, and apprenticeships. Feedback we received was fed back to Qualifications Wales. So from September 2019 is when the bulk of the development engagement started with centres, employers, training providers, tutors and learners. Then from November 2019, we kicked off consultation events and workshops where we took on board key points to see what people thought of it and if there was anything missing to validate our thinking, such as did they like the approach? Is there anything we could improve on? This all fed into a pre-submission to Qualifications Wales in December. We were due to start face-to-face assessment testing with learners in April 2020, but now with the current coronavirus situation, we are looking for ways to do that differently. So now we're seeing how we can do this effectively remotely. We are working through alternative plans at the moment. Draft qualification specifications and sample assessments are currently scheduled to be available to centres August 2020. We are monitoring how the coronavirus is affecting how we continue to make sure our consultation is carried out in a robust way. This may result in a phased introduction to the availability of the draft qualification specifications. We are still on track to have the final qualification specifications and sample assessments available by December 2020. In the 6-month countdown to first teaching, we will remind providers of the things they need to think about ahead of delivery with a readiness checklist. From September 2021, we plan to invite teaching centres to sector-specific network events. Here we can see the stakeholder input into the qualification development. Throughout the process, we have employers and industry experts involved in the key stages. They were involved in the initial scope meetings that started in August 2019. They will continue to be involved from now until November of this year in the design and the refinement of the content through to finalising the qualifications and sample assessments. While the early part of this year has been focused on refining the content and developing the sample assessments, now we are really testing that approach by keeping key stakeholders involved, including the learner. The test the thinking allows us to sense check what we're doing is correct before we move into Qualifications Wales submission stage in May. Following feedback from Qualifications Wales, the next phase from June will be to further refine and finalise the qualifications and samples assessments, so the specification detail can be made available in time for centres and teachers to be ready for the next academic year. Here we look at the roles that the stakeholders play. Essentially, it's about making sure the employers and industry are validating the content to meet the industry standards, so that learners can be confident their qualification is going to serve a purpose well. Centres are there to validate the delivery, making sure they can teach it, that it's accessible and able to be processed. We were due to move to the next stage with face-to-face scoping meetings with our stakeholders in April 2020, but due to the situation with COVID-19, we have had to explore digital ways in which to move this stage forward. I would urge you to be part of these. To ensure we have your details, please sign up to receive these updates on our website, which is www.skillsforwales.wales/sign-up. The learner's role is the proof of concept, so tying all those ends together and taking it out to a learner and saying, how do you feel about this? Is this accessible to you? What do you think about the assessment methods? Would you feel confident in taking this qualification and coming out of it ready to go into the workplace? As mentioned earlier, we were due to move into the next stage with face-to-face scoping meetings with our stakeholders in April 2020, but due to the situation with COVID-19, we've had to explore digital ways in which to move this stage forward. I would urge you to be part of these. This shows an overview of the qualification structure. So we've got the foundation qualification, which is the entry point into a cross-cutting, broad-based foundation qualification for learners going into any trade. It's level 2 at 540 guided learning hours and gives the learner a broad overview of the industry. It introduces them to the different trade areas and the basic world of work. The foundation covers 2 trades, so a learner can pick any 2 trades that providers wish to offer. The foundation will be their first introduction to the industry and is where we anticipate most of the learners starting full-time, either from school, sixth form or college. At the end of the first year, if they haven't already got an apprenticeship, they can move on to the progression qualification. It's level 2 and 540 guided learning hours. The progression qualification is another optional full-time year in FE that's focused on skills development for one trade. Once they move into the progression, they will pick one trade that appeals to them the most. The chosen trade is where they will focus their skill development, practical skills, employability skills, and get ready for the world of work. The content is in line with the national occupational standards within the chosen occupational trade pathway. After completing the progression qualification, learners can take one of these qualifications as part of an apprenticeship. Construction 2-year and 3-year in whichever trade specialism they choose, or BSc 3-year and 4-year. The length of these qualifications are determined by the choice of trade specialism. The content is in line with national occupational standards within the learner's chosen occupational trade pathway, which we'll run through in a moment. These are level 3 and they'll be supported by both the employer and the learning provider. This shows an overview of the trade areas that can be covered in each of the qualifications we have just outlined, specifically in construction trades. We will look at building services engineering on the next slide. As you might expect, the foundation in construction and built environment routes will be a lot broader in terms of the content covered and foundation skills learnt. As learners move into the progression in construction qualification, the focus on one specialist trade allows them to develop their knowledge, skills and understanding for that trade as contained in the national occupational standards. As learners move into the 2-year and 3-year apprenticeship qualifications, the specialist trade areas are a lot more specific and focused. The foundation qualification is one qualification and covers construction and building services engineering. And as mentioned, 2 trades are chosen by the learner. Once they move into the progression and apprenticeship, they narrow down and it goes into plumbing or electrotechnical. As learners move into the progression in BSc qualification, the focus on one specialist trade allows them to develop their knowledge, skills and understanding for either plumbing and heating or electrotechnical systems and equipment installation. As learners move into the 3-year and 4-year apprenticeship qualifications, the specialist trade areas are a lot more specific and focused, as you can imagine. This is the assessment structure of the qualification. The on-screen test is 20%. The project is the bulk of the qualification marks, covering 60% of the assessment. The project will take a planned review and approach with a list of practical tasks for the learner to do. At foundation stage, there will be more focus on planning, while at progression and level 3, the focus will shift to doing. The discussion that sits alongside the project is 20%. This approach is consistent across all of the qualifications and trades. We'll go into more detail about this later on. What we're going to run through now are the different learner entry points. Learner A, for example, starts at foundation. They would study 2 trades together and do 2 projects, 20 hours per trade. Learners would complete the guided discussion and the health and safety on-screen test. At the end of the foundation, if the learner secures employment and they want to take the level 3 as part of an apprenticeship, they need to take the progression on-screen test to gain entry. In comparison, when learner B completes the foundation course and they haven't secured employment, they'll do the progression and everything that it entails, which is the on-screen test, the 60-hour project because they're only focusing on one trade area, and then they'll do the guided discussion. At the end of the progression, the learner secures employment. They can then take the level 3 as part of an apprenticeship. Learner C is someone that goes straight into employment before or during completion of the foundation qualification. Their entry point would be different to learners A and B. The exact entry requirements for learner C are still under discussion, but we are exploring the options as we consult with centres and stakeholders and Qualifications Wales. The current thinking is that learner C will study and be tested on some elements of the foundation qualification, probably the on-screen test and the health and safety on-screen test. Achieving these 2 tests will allow learner C to get their skills card to be able to go on site during their apprenticeship. We are looking into allowing learner C to take just 1 trade from the foundation, as opposed to the 2 trades that the foundation provides for learner A and B. They would also need to complete the progression on-screen test to make sure they have the deeper knowledge that the progression qualification provides. All of the new qualifications, including the level 3 qualification that is taken as part of an apprenticeship, will be assessed using the same methods, which are on-screen knowledge assessment, a practical project, and either a guided or professional discussion. For the apprenticeship qualifications, learners will only be entered for assessment once their employer has signed them off against the nationally recognised occupational standards. Here we will go into more detail about the project. For foundation and progression, it's between 40 and 60 guided learning hours. Then for the level 3 qualification, it goes up to 80 guided learning hours. We'll be using one holistic scenario for the project, which could be, for example, a new housing development. This allows all of the trade areas to be covered, and it gives the learners the opportunity to choose the scenario they want to be involved in. Learners do their own planning, carrying out the trade tasks, and then review their performance at the end, which ties into the discussion element. Centres will be provided with an assessment pack containing the assessment, including sections for assessors and learners' guidance about how the assessment will be carried out. The assessment will take an established approach of plan, do and review, designed so that a consistent approach can be used across construction and building services engineering. So the same overarching scenario will be used, however it will differ when it comes to the assessment of the practical skills. For example, trowel occupations may be asked to build a cavity wall. Our scenario involves several trades replicating type of works carried out on site within the sector. For example, the construction of a single-storey extension. This focuses on working across trades, points of handovers, which assesses the learner has an understanding of how they fit into the bigger project. Learners studying niche trades will be given guidance on how assessment should be approached, but generally, centres will have the flexibility to amend scenarios to build in niche trades and to create practical elements. As we've touched on briefly already about each of the projects, especially the foundation level are structured as a plan, do, review approach. So learners will plan their project based on this scenario. They'll think about what skills they need to use for the trade areas they're covering. Then they'll go and do these practical tasks because it is at the foundation level they'll be covering the 2 chosen trades, which will be split equally. Centres will be provided with an assessment pack containing the assessment, including sections for assessors and learners and guidance around how the assessments will be carried out. Our scenario involves several trades replicating type of works carried out on site within the sector. For example, the construction of a single-storey extension. This focuses on working across trades, points of handovers, assessing the learner has an understanding of how they fit into the bigger project. The project will be trade-specific, but also be comparable across trades. The practical skills and observation records will differ for each trade area. However, the grading criteria around planning, ways of working, wider skills, and handovers between trades will be the same for all trade areas, bringing in comparability across trades. A clear structure and format of how learners are graded, clearly showing how evidence from the observation captured on an objective recording form feeds into the overarching grade in an uniform way for each trade. We are looking at proposals that may have the practical element within the project carry a higher weighting towards grades, providing a balance between wider and technical skills. The grading model allows the compensation to be built into it. The review will be 2 separate areas. It will be discussion around all of the tasks that they did, and it will be a handover approach to explain what they did and what they would do differently. And then a guided discussion looking at those elements that cannot be assessed in practical terms. So we'll talk about things like generic health and safety in construction and generic questions around the construction industry. There may be some discussion around what other trade areas would be doing and their involvement in that project, which will cover all the knowledge that the foundation is based upon. Then on to a little bit more detail on what the discussion looks like. It encourages an organic discussion on what they've done, making sure they're getting credit for the learning that they've done. They would also touch upon some of those generic themes to create consistency across all trades. It would be internally marked, but with externally set questions and discussion areas. The first part of that is talking about the project. Here we are looking at more detail about the portfolio and employer sign-off. It covers the purpose of the portfolio, which is to support the employer to determine whether or not the candidate is occupationally competent, but also allows the centre to check that the sign-off is valid with an audit trail to support the decision made. The sign-off provides candidates access to the final part of the qualification assessment process. The new qualifications are to be made available to learners who register on or after the 1st of September 2021, and current qualifications will continue to be funded up until September 2021, with a transition period to allow learners to complete the qualifications they've already working towards. Please visit the website regularly to see the updated frequently asked questions. The Skills for Wales website has been live since mid-March. When you've got a moment, go and check it out at skillsforwales.wales and make sure you sign up to receive information regarding news and events. Thank you to everyone for watching, and I hope you're all staying safe in this very strange times. Diolch yn fawr iawn i chi. Thank you.